Okay, thank you for that. Brief discussion. Did anybody else have any further questions for the police? Kelly, Ian, sorry, that's all right.
It's not a question, it's just that on Friday night we had the Christmas festival and we had the presence of a few police officers, but we also had 3 really great community support officers that I've since found out came over from Spain to support us. And they were fantastic. They were there all evening. There were only a few minor issues that we had to deal with, like for instance, peddler, and they just dealt with things really well. So it was a big thank you. I think Sarah would have probably done that. Thank you had she been here. But yeah, it was really noticeable. It was really comforting, and when there were those things, they were literally less than 30 seconds away from anyone needing to get them.
Yeah, I don't want feeding that.
Yeah, everything they'd done was it was there. They were there.
Just really effective. They're just really calm and really effective. Yeah. It's just brilliant.
Can I just ask about the anti-vax protest? What obligations are there on the organisers to contact you or take what they need to do in order to protest safely and legally? If they've risk assessments and so on.
I don't know anything about it, quite frankly, other than we will be there to just check they're not, they're behaving themselves.
Yeah.
They can quietly protest. I don't know how to get it. Like we have a visit down the Bell Street.
Yeah.
And we'll refer animal people were protesting. They just put them in a group and quietly protest. So yeah, that's.
But they're free to do that as long as they're lawful. Okay. I'm just curious. I'm not.
Yeah, no, it's not.
People have the right to protest, even if they're ridiculous and stupid.
And vote.
I couldn't think of a polite way of putting it.
So, is the process that they actually notified the police of, or did you just become aware of it?
Yes. Yeah.
So they're going to it. They're notified by other means.
Whereas the anti-vaxxers not police, maybe.
They normally do. They normally do that sale. So they can start with silent protest and, if they want to, we don't believe in it. It's up to people if they want to listen or not. So.
Sorry, what date was that again?
11th. I think it's between 2 and 8. I will check those times and let you know. Okay, Saturday.
Yeah.
Although I've only been vaccinated.
Yeah. There's a lot of false information, and there's one high profile person. And it's quite dangerous, the false information that they give out. And some people that are quite vulnerable could be misled. I know, but it's misleading. It's misleading and dangerous.
Anybody else have anything you'd like to say?
Very quick one. But we haven't really been in kind of regular contact with you kind of as a council, apart from for individual events and so on and so forth. But is there any ways that the council can better support your work?
No, what's COVID happening? And then I know I spoke a lot with Helen. Once Helen's gone, I need to know who you want me to talk to more to say where we are and what we're doing. So obviously we have a lot to pass on. Sometimes it gets a bit lost. I talk to everybody, but all individually around something, and it's all different. I need to know what you want from us, and we can then say what we can do to help. I know that we all have varying points that you want us to lead on. We don't lead on what where we're obviously pushed as well. So I don't know who that person is. I think Nikki quite a lot.
So that person would be Craig, our new town sales manager. So the new Helen.
Yes, okay. Helen, we'll meet up then. That'd be lovely.
Matthew Barber, the Police Crime Commissioner, has quite a substantial sum of money that he puts to crime prevention. Can we make sure that if there is something you need in Henley,
that you could confidentially speak to him to make sure that we could probably get it from that pot of money, because I know it's quite a substantial sum. I don't know what you might need, but and I won't discuss it in a public meeting, but we'd like to see some of that money come to Henley if it's being pushed around. I know it's a very big area, Thames Valley, but we should be applying for money if it's grants.
So we need to make sure we get our,
Yeah, full
yeah,
check.
I think sometimes I've forgotten on a couple of things, but yeah, if you let Craig know, then we'll talk and
Okay.
we can
Thank you.
help on it.
Okay, well, thank you very much for coming along. Councillors have said at many meetings how much they appreciate seeing police, and they certainly noticed when we done the whole file.
And now we're back on, not on Zoom, we're
Yeah.
back in, hopefully, with them. You know, won't have the lockdown again. We'll be down there, I believe.
Brilliant. Okay, so item 6, communication management update. Receiving to know report to communications management.
Quite to receive a letter, but just perhaps town clerk in due course, once Craig has settled in, could let us know what goes to Craig and what goes to Naomi, because whilst Naomi's reports here, she's obviously been on the website. Things like promoting the car club, promoting sponsorship of pole for the golf club, golf putting green, or promoting the bus, for example. Have you worked out how you're going to fit it? And I think it's just to be helpful with the councillors know so we know who's going to.
So in general, the rule is for council-wide communications, general communications, it's Naomi. And then for individual projects, it depends who that project sits with, and then Naomi will then support them. So for example, if it's communications around an enabled town consultation, then Kath and Jodie would lead on it, but Naomi would support them with the communications. Likewise with events, Craig and Nikki would lead on that, and Naomi would support with the comms around that. So that's the general rule with it. With things like the website, with booking systems, with communication strategies and that sort of thing, that will go directly to Naomi. If in doubt, you can always ask me and I can let them know. But if it's a particular event, go to the officer who's leading on a particular event or project, go to the officer leading on that project. If it's for general communications, marketing, branding, go to Naomi. I believe it's being proposed.
Okay. All those in favour? Okay. Agenda item 7, finances 2020-2021, to note the management accounts for the end of October 2021. Receiving and consider the draft budget for 2022-23. Anybody to start this one?
So generally the forecast for this year is lower than budgeted. So we have a budget this year for the T&C of 353,000, and we're forecasting net expenditure of 327,000. And the main savings there are one is due to the vacant town centre manager post for a few months, so there's been quite a saving there. And the other one is on the furniture replacement programme. That's we're only, we believe we're only going to need to spend about 10,000 there. So those are the two main things.
Nothing with the management accounts, but I didn't get the draft budget report. Good, great progress.
On page 9.
It does look very much like. the
Oh,
management
there,
accounts.
yeah, no, I was expecting like a report like RNA and stuff where we go through it. Thing. I was expecting a report side of it, not just the budget,
Ah, right.
where it talks about each of the projects. Do you know what I mean? Like on RNA, we have it with the header and then all the bits, and Donna will like go through the headline of that. So that's what I was expecting, sorry.
I believe there was, I need to double check, I believe there was a report with the previous
Right.
meeting. And so for this round, I don't
It's
think there are
just
any,
for that,
there
okay,
are,
fair enough.
there aren't any changes. I believe that's the case, but I need to check.
So it's just to summarise like the budget and then just a summary in the line of the accounts. Okay, fair enough.
Yeah, I went through the budget, and one thing that isn't in here, and it is a budgetary item, because I believe it's replacement. But there's nothing in here for the replacement or the repointing of the York Stone. And I think that could be quite a substantial budget thing that would happen. Replacement and repointing is probably not a capital item. Question. We highlight it now so that when we're putting the budget together, it gets listed as a line item. You'll then say how much to put in it, and it is. So I haven't seen any of the quotes on how much it's likely to be.
That's actually covered in the progress report.
Yeah, but it's not actually, but it should be, at this stage, it should be a budget item for next year.
Right, but it says that a quotation has been prepared.
Yeah, and so that's the aim for that.
I'd be happy to update on that.
Yeah, not that, please.
So Nikki has been getting quotations. The difficulty has been, first of all, finding contractors, which is particularly difficult. The second is understanding the remits as well, because obviously there is a lot of York paving in Henley, and if you're going to repoint, it's how much you repoint, and so it's giving them a clear steer on what we're going to quote for. And so it could be a hugely substantial, looking at hundreds of thousands, or it could be a very discrete project, just say for the marketplace. And until we've got a better idea from the quotes, because I think we've got two quotes which vary quite widely now. So until we have those quotes, and then we've been able to meet and decide exactly what approach we want to take to get it all done, or focus on particular areas, do it in a phased approach or whatever, then it would be not even possible to try and budget for it.
Thank you. Councillor Eggleton, then Viceman.
Are we talking on the paving and the thing, or is it, shall I leave it to the budget, to the actual time?
Leave it to progress, yeah.
I leave it to the progress.
I think the original intention when this discussion started was to look at the marketplace in particular. That's the most high-profile, prestigious part of the paving because it's a large productionised area that uses the various functions. It's also, as I understand it, we contractually maintain it, don't we? I think.
No, we don't actually.
We used to. We stopped doing this.
So our second one agreement with the county council only covers two elements. The first is the Highways Act 1980 section 115, which talks about basically around seating licenses and so on and so forth. So we regulate that. And the other is, I believe, is the Traffic Regulation Act. I couldn't tell you which year, apologies. And it's it covers the whole of that act, but that's really around the regulation of traffic lights. So it is actually public highway, which is maintainable by the local highways authority, so the county council. So the town council don't actually have any greater obligation to maintain the marketplace than we do any other part of the public highway. In practice, because we use it so much and because it's one of our amenities, if you like, then we do tend to maintain it to a higher standard than we would any other pavement.
Thank you for that. I mean, given the background to the marketplace, and as you just indicated, it isn't regarded differently, and that was the motivation behind this appearing some time ago on the progress report. And I think there is a feeling that we should treat that differently and maintain it to a higher standard than perhaps we do the other pavements in the town. And if we are seriously considering looking at spending money on the granting in the pavement marketplace, I think Councillor Hamilton's suggestion might make sense, which is that we do set aside some money for the budget, pending the quotes that we get to cover both marketplace and wider areas. But I think the marketplace in particular is worth doing, because I think there will be a greater sympathy or an inclination to spend money on that space. And you can see because we clean it, and that does cause granting to be lost at times. And so I'm looking around to see if it does make sense to say set aside £10,000 for in the budget, so that if we do come in the next financial year to look at doing that, our budget does actually reflect what our likely plans are, which is what's it supposed to do. It doesn't make a decision, but it does give us an indication of how much we may well spend. So I wouldn't, if the feeling of this committee is that there's a reason to go ahead, I'd say putting 10,000 in the. Now, unfortunately, it does have to be revenue. I think I very much like to put it in the council budget, but the notice isn't here. So I think that would be stretching it. Yeah. Okay.
Perhaps before you respond, the subject on here is from May. You pointed out, I mean, what is the realistic prospect of getting this quotation in time?
For the budget, I believe she had something come out recently or had a promising lead. However, I think that if the committee wanted to go with Councillor Riceland's suggestion, that could be a good one, i.e. focusing on the marketplace. Therefore, there's a discrete area where it's much easier to get a quote for, because it's a much less daunting task. And it's probably something that we could take a stab in the dark at a figure of, say, 10,000 for that we could put aside. So from an officer's point of view, the suggestion would be something.
Well, I'll second that. Yeah. All those in favour? Anything else like that? After all that hard work.
I would say there's always community infrastructure left inside.
Yeah.
Anybody got anything else to add? Move on. Okay, agenda item 8 is the progress report. So, town centre signage, had lots of conversations about that today, and we definitely are going to either get that moving or get that removed from this agenda permanently the next time. Fair goal. Street lighting. And then some of this.
While we're on street lighting,
Yeah.
we got street the bulbs along the riverfront and by Hobbs's. There's a string of lights. Down there. They're good lights.
Some of it.
There's half of it's not working.
That would
Not
make sense.
Oh, I see.
I believe that would be something for our festive lighting contractor, who I believe Craig is in constant contact with.
Okay, well, just, if you can say, there's loads of bulbs out there.
Yeah, as Sheridan pointed out, that some of the Christmas lights, is that going to be fixed, the ones that aren't lighting the dogs down Duke Street? Is it down Duke Street or?
I believe Craig might be able to give an update on that.
These the lighting strings.
Yeah.
Yeah. Friday night, the engineer who was here from our contractor claimed he tried to move heaven and earth to get it to work. Couldn't make it work that evening. Reported it to the project manager. I was expecting to see that done Saturday and on Sunday. It was quite amazed when it wasn't done for today. So there's been several email follow-up to get that sorted by minimum end of this week. And I don't know what the actual physical issue is.
Right.
Thank you. So, we're away and the water fountain's both next year. Anyone have anything to add on? No, can I look at the
I can give you an update on Broadway roadside.
Oh, please.
Well, it's not much of an update, but I obviously read the update. I read the agenda and was like, oh my God, I've got an action that I haven't actioned for the last 6 weeks. So I spoke to a few people at SADC and didn't really get anywhere. So I asked Ken, who has messaged someone, and then I messaged the CEO. And obviously he's busy, he's got better things to do than to answer my little query from Henry. So one of his office did get back to me, and she's put me in touch with the relevant department to get the correction done. So that's the update. We're in contact with the right people now, but there's no progress as of yet.
It's coming.
It's coming. I'll be waited a few years. Coming. Is there anything else to say on repointing of York Stone?
Yeah.
Has everyone then?
But this has been going on a long time, and 30 minutes of this CFT meeting, you'll see how long it's been going on. The thing is, when you jet wash stuff, you do blow the joints out. It's not the best way of cleaning your stone. Any type of stone like that, unless it's hard granite type stuff, you shouldn't use the jet wash because it takes the pigment down the top of the stone. So if you flip that stone up, it'll be a completely different colour from what it is now. So you shouldn't keep jet washing it, because you just, what you do is you blow away the surface, and if you look in some of the places, some of the stone is just corroded away because you've taken all the structure out of the stone, and that's what you end up with, loads of little pockets like that in the town centre if you carry on jet washing. As regards pointing, I've done that for 3 years for British Rail, pointing railway helpers, and that on and on and on and on and on and on. This is a small job compared with the jobs that we would undertake. So I'm very surprised that you haven't got loads of people, because pointing is pretty straightforward structure. As regards taking the pointing out, if you you'd have to take most of it out or see where it is. An expert would know what they're doing anyway, and they will cut out all the joints. And it would probably be better to take, like if you were saying, take the marketplace and just do the marketplace. But I would say take all the pointing out of the marketplace and repoint the whole lot rather than things, because otherwise you'll have different colours of jointing, which will look a right mess. So if you're going to do the marketplace and do the jointing, you need to strip the whole square out and repoint and replace slabs where needed.
Okay. Well, I've got a fact making the conversation.
Have we done increasing commercial opportunities?
I think we jumped it, didn't we? I sort of jumped it.
My
So
bad.
I'm just not impressed, because I'm not in favour of it, because our road traffic system is not suited to it, because you only have to have one road put out of place and the whole town comes to gridlock. Like a couple of weeks ago, when I can't remember, there was something, but I was given a lift and I had to
And there was a
No,
fire,
there was
fire,
a fire down Bell Street.
fire down Bell Street.
The traffic was, I was walking up Badmore Lane and literally there was a car coming down Badmore Lane and it had mounted the pavement and there was nowhere for me to go. And it's really dangerous because people get irate, they drive very fast around the road areas, ignore the 20 mile an hour zone, and Hop Gardens is just, it's not compatible. Hop Gardens needs sorting out. You need to either have the parking completely suspended up there because it does need two-lane traffic and you've got a single lane and the drivers getting angry and getting mad with residents, and we just cannot cope until we've got a proper traffic infrastructure working. We're never going to have this because it will not be, it's not practical, and it just causes so much chaos. But you know, I know it's only once a month, but it does cause chaos.
To be honest, I think we sort of canned this temporarily in the last meeting, didn't we?
I was just trying to point out traffic does not suitable.
If you look at point 48 of the last document, 3.2,
Yeah.
that's right. If the item should be removed, we've already taken it out of the project, so it's been canned, so it can now come off the progress report.
Can I just say something on this?
Yeah, sure.
When you talk about, the thing is, this town had a two-way system all the way through, so if you had any incidences in the town, then they were resolved quite quickly because you had two-way traffic, so you close one and you run the traffic at the other one. Unfortunately, it's been pedestrianised in so many different areas in and around town and one-way streets and all this. But unfortunately, when you get an incident where there's a tree or scaffolding coming down or a fire and it blocks one of the roads off, you're going to get it. But it does get sorted out quite quickly if you get the police in or traffic control. If I'm in town, I normally divert traffic in and around and try to keep traffic flowing as quickly as possible. But it's just needing the police to get involved, really. If we want to feed back to the police, if there's any instances like that, it's getting police on certain street corners, then it will flow quite quickly because people just want to get through the traffic. But if you've got police there or someone in authority diverting traffic in these key junctions, you will then keep it flowing. So that's all you have to put in place, is asking the police to respond if there's an incident, to make sure they're at certain junctions in and around the town, and then it will carry on flowing properly.
Yeah, so on the pedestrianisation of the marketplace, it was agreed that a report will come back to the committee regarding the matter, and then the committee could consider it and then pass a resolution with all the facts as to whether or not it wanted to try any experimental closure. In point 48 of the last minutes, where it says pedestrianising the whole of the marketplace from time to time to increase income should be removed, that was an observation by one or more members rather than a formal resolution of the committee, which is why it's still on the progress report.
Yeah, I just know, and it's unfortunate because I know Councillor Cook is only just joined this committee, so she won't know this. But this was brought to the committee by Councillor Miller, and every time it's been discussed in detail, it's when she's not here, which is either a coincidence or really quite sinister. I would like to hear her point of view on it, actually, because she's the one that, with our events manager, who also isn't here to talk about it, has done the legwork on this and has brought the proposal forward. And I just think that, yes, we do have to look at our traffic issues when we close the road to the Mayfair Christmas Festival, this one-off event, if it were to happen. And we are here to work for our residents, but we're also here to work with our retailers as well. And this was an idea to boost our retailers, to boost our local economy and have a day of, you know, no roads and people out walking, shopping and supporting our local retailers. So that was the sentiment behind it. And I think that I would certainly like to hear from either or Anne, Sarah and Nikki before we go and make a decision in their absence.
I think that's a fair comment. So,
Well, we've made the decision already, but do we have to vote on it again?
we didn't vote on it before. Sounds like it's fair.
So we moved it, it's like that we proposed. This is the time don't want it, made it very clear they don't want it, they want the streets open. We've removed it from the budget, but okay, you can have another report if you want, but I don't know where we're going with this one, it seems to go round and round.
It needs to be updated because the last date mentioned here is 23rd of September, which is in the past, so. Hopefully.
I just leave it and then it goes to,
Well, hopefully we'll have something proper to discuss at the next meeting, the right people to talk about it. Right. Next item. Bin refurbishment, we're awaiting the quotation for cigarette stubbing plates at the top of the bins. We're still awaiting that.
I believe so, yes.
Refurbishment programs complete.
no.
That's a very good question. I would usually pass this over to Nikki, but she is here at the moment.
No,
It must be difficult.
So we would need to.
There's still a few, but I think they've still got a few, whoever they sent the bins to, I think they've still got them, a couple of them. There's one bin being replaced at the bottom of New Street. There's one bin being broken, I don't know where that one come from. We're not on bins yet, are we, on that?
Well,
Or is that the
bin
next one?
refurbishment.
Yeah. The one up on the reason this was come up, it is being up at Top Shop, is there's a bin up there already.
No, that's the next agenda item.
All right, okay, sorry.
That question was about the stubbing plates and the.
Yeah,
bin renovation.
well, yeah, Yeah, I don't think you should put something like, I think there should be another way of looking into having a cigarette dispenser rather than something would take cigarette butts in it rather than.
Yeah, I think you might have missed that meeting. The idea with the stubbing plate was not because we want people stubbing their cigarettes out on the bins, it's because they are doing it already and they won't stop doing it. So we
No,
thought
no.
we'd put a plate there to protect the bin. But having separate bins elsewhere is something we could do as well, for sure.
The only way when you're drilling into cast iron and you're putting another fixture into that cast iron, then you're prone for rust around that joint. So you've got a refurbished bin like right on the top of the bin where it's going to get all the weather, and they're going to rust and all around the top.
I think we should probably discuss that when we get the quotation for it, because at the moment we're not making any decisions on that. So.
I would say that, yes, indeed, trying to although the modern new ones have it as standard, or you can have it as an option, retrofitting it is really difficult.
Yeah.
And we've seen that unfortunately a lot of the recently refurbished bins, because they don't have stubbing plates, then the tops are already looking pretty shabby because of it. The one at the bottom of the New Street, it had just been refurbished, and then unfortunately when the hinges went and it was unrepairable. So yes, we've lost that bin. That's the one at the bottom of New Street.
Is that the one by where they put the electric point? They put electric point into the ice cream van.
ID notice board there.
Oh, sorry, actually, I meant at the bottom of Friday Street.
Oh, yeah,
Not
say,
the
yeah,
bottom of New
yeah.
Street, yes.
Yeah, there's one missing from there, and outside Robert Dice, I think there was one. I don't know whether that one's been put back. Because there was, the last time I spoke to Nikki, there was, I think, 2 bins outstanding from the contractor that had taken, so whether they've come back or not.
Starting to drift off topic here. Councillor Crowe?
Yeah, Scott said, really worried because I saw people, when they've just been painted, people have been stopping their cigarettes and it's burning the paint off, which is just, they don't realise what they're doing, and I could cry when you see people damaging them. You know, you can, I'll say, just drop them on the floor if we don't have them.
Can't do that, it's illegal.
Can I ask about the status of the stolen bins?
It's an election.
Ian woke up off his line, slightly.
It's not an agenda item, Mr. Chairman.
Or what practical for bins? The Henley Society, I think.
Okay. Do we have one there?
I have to ask it, tomorrow.
I would say yes, this is, once we get checks.
So, quickly, I want to move away from discussion of bins to agenda item 9, which is the Woodman Manor bin.
You can't get enough bins.
Okay, so following numerous requests from the public for officers to make contact with the landlord of Woodman Manor Shops or Top Shops, to consider running a trial of a litter bin outside the shops for 6 months using a bin that is currently in storage at Park Depot, which will be a minimum cost to the council. Councillor Hinton, Councillor Hamilton.
So back in the beginning of March, people started first complaining because the bin had been removed, and went through to SODC to see what could be done about this. And they were clear it's not, as you say, it's not the individual shops that are responsible for the bin that was there, it's the landowner as a whole. And in the first instance, they'd contact him to put the bin back there because it was causing a litter issue. And if he didn't want to, that there is enforcement under a particular regulation number, I can't remember, where they could sort of make him put the bin back. That kind of drifted. There's been sort of complaints. I know that parks have a really great relationship, for example, and with the planter and everything with the landowner, but I really don't see why this is our problem. As a town council, I see why it's our problem as an SODC hat, but I don't get why it's our problem and why parks would do, other than the relationship with the landowner and keeping that in good heart. But actually, he has a responsibility to put that bin in, and I think sometimes I just get a little bit fed up of the town council going behind everybody with a giant mop, you know, county drop this, we'll pick it up, district drop that, we'll pick it up, landowner drops that, we'll pick it up. And it's just, actually, no, we're a little town council, and sometimes people should just actually do what they're supposed to do.
Quite agree. And there has been an impact on our bins that are around that area because they're all.
Yeah, perhaps I can help on this because we need to look after the whole of the town, not just the marketplace. And there's a reason why this has been put on here, is because I certainly have had emails monthly, latest one from Jackie Williams, who regularly picks up rubbish up there. And she said, look, there's a little problem there, and then the wind picks up and it goes between the wall and the shops. And she's been emailing me month after month. Please, can the town council, our responsibility, provide hardware, our responsibility for a bin that could be picked up by SODC, their responsibility. And I said, actually, I don't know why this isn't just being sorted, because it's a no-brainer. It's not going to cost us any money. There's already a bin that we've taken away from Starbucks. It's being emptied by SODC at the moment. That can be dropped into that position. It'll be picked up by SODC. By Thursday they go past. It's no fuel cost extra, but it's just stopping and picking up from a different bin. We've got the bin in storage, so why don't we just put it there for 6 months with the landlord's consent? Perhaps the park staff can help us, or I've already asked the town clerk, who said he would take this on himself. Ask the landlord and see whether we can just put it in there for 6 months to see what effect that has, and that might make some people up there a lot happier than they currently are with seeing litter running. Going around in the wind. It's not going to cost us an awful lot of money, so why not let's get it done? Did you want to respond? So I suppose that we go with the proposal here, which is just to try it for 6 months, see where we get to.
So I think from what I've seen, or from what I've heard, although I think of the councillors who are close to the top jobs will know better, it does look like there is a litter issue up there, that other bins are being filled up. And that, in principle, it does sound like a good idea if we have a bin in storage that we can put up there. And that was raised directly with SODC and the relevant team at SODC. The response that I got back was they have just started what they're calling, I think they're calling it the bin project, which is basically a big survey of all the bins in the district, starting with Henley. Apparently, this is what I had a couple of months ago, and that basically they wouldn't consider servicing any additional bins. So whilst we might be able to get permission from the landlord perhaps to put in a bin there, if it's not going to be serviced by the district council, then it wouldn't be worthwhile. If we did get permission from the district council and we could support that, that might be something the committee could consider. However, I don't think that we can, we would have the mandate to agree here to put in the bin that we wouldn't be able to service.
Just a quick question. Can SODC compel the landowner to provide a bin?
They can't, as far as I'm aware, they can't compel them to provide a bin. I believe under the Environmental Protection Act, I believe they can, I believe that is the legislation that allows them to enforce. If there is basically litter causing an issue, then that's how they can take enforcement action. But I might be wrong. Yeah, I might be wrong. They might be able to compel them in some way, but not that.
Councillor Hinton.
Yeah, you can't just throw a proposal out without a report. You can say put a bin up there, again, okay, you know, it won't be collected by SADC, why would they collect something that they can enforce instead? But also, you know, how often would it be collected? Who would pay for the bags? Who would clean it? I mean, how many times a week would it be empty? There's been so much to it, you can't just throw out a verbal thing. I think it's just waffle, really, actually, and it's ridiculous. Let's go down the route of who's responsible to do it. Yes, the town council can do it, we're not responsible, so why? The landowner can do it.
The key point.
Sorry.
Yeah, well, I've been out there quite a few times picking up litter in and around the car park, around the top shops and on the entrance of Woodland Manor Estate. Quite a few times, I've got loads of pictures as well to prove it. Quite a few times, well, you've probably seen it, it's bags of rubbish left around the side, the bins overflowing, and that's what creates all the problems with all the litter in the roads and everything else. And we as a council, we try to keep our streets clean of rubbish, and you know, that is quite a busy area. There's a big footfall, and they always come across to the car park and put their rubbish. And a few householders, and I've seen people when they pull in the car park, they actually take their bags of rubbish out of their cars and start stuffing it in the bins, or if they can't get it in the bin, they stick it down the side. What Councillor Hamilton's talking about is on the Woodland Manor side, if you put that bigger bin, because you've got a grass verge there, taking that bin out and putting that bigger bin in, because you've got recycling, it does the three different subjects of stuff. Perhaps that would then probably be used and take the foot, because that one overflows quite a lot, and it might take the pressure off the other one, and it might work. So it's all it is you've taken one bin out and replacing it with a bigger bin, and try that for 6 months, and if it doesn't work, then take it out and put it back in. They're not emptying an extra bin, they're just having a bigger bin to take the volume of rubbish off on that area.
The key point is the town clerk made it very clear. SADC will not collect an additional bin, right? They're not collecting the one outside Starbucks, which is a bigger bin. They're one less already. There's a number of bins around the town that aren't there. So this is not an additional collection by SADC. This is not an additional bin. This is just merely swapping a bin for a bin and getting something up there so that people can try for 6 months. If it becomes overflowing the whole time, then we'll have to review it again. But I'm sorry, Councillor Hinton, this is an SODC responsibility.
No, it's not.
Hang on. Seeing that bin as an SODC responsibility, and you may shake your head, and it's not awful, but there is a lady that has emailed, and we should do our little bit, provide the hardware of the bin, try it for 6 months, and see where we get to. And so I would go with this proposal.
I wouldn't entirely agree with Councillor Hamilton that it is just a bin for a bin. It's not an additional bin. Unfortunately, and that has been argued with the district council. Unfortunately, that's not how they
District councils can take it back to them then.
Okay, can I propose from the chair that we kick this to the next committee and have a report produced that tells us what our options are?
Already made a proposal.
there is a proposal for the motion.
Yeah, but we don't have any information.
Proposal for the motion.
It's not been seconded.
I'll second it. Based on the report that comes back, bringing it forward back to this committee for trial for 6 months. It's just swapping from one bin to another bin, which we've already got.
If we can, okay, Councillor Crowe.
Yeah.
Seeing as Councillor Eggleton said that it's people dumping their household rubbish, this is just going to encourage more people to dump more household rubbish, and that is the problem. People dumping their stuff and not keeping it in their own bins. That's why there's so much litter up there. Because Councillor Eggleton said he's seen people do it himself.
No, it's not a household rubbish. It's rubbish out their cars.
That's the question.
I've got a lot of sympathy with the with what's behind this proposal, which is to look at a problem where there is a litter issue, and that we attempt, as Councillor Ferguson said, to keep our streets clean. That's a perfectly sensible position for the town council to take, and it's what we do. And so the principle is right, but we don't have a number of details that need to be gone into that have been raised as objections. And primarily, there's no point putting a bin there unless it's going to be empty. So it has to be something that district council agreed to do in advance before we decide. Councillor Hinton also made a number of points about the fact that this council spends a lot of time, energy and money looking after the responsibilities which really belong to the district council and the county council. But we do that because for the same reason that we talk about taking responsibility for litter. We do things like grass cutting, we do things like the bus service, we do all sorts of services around town that we provide, which should be provided by the district council, county council. But we do that because if we didn't do it, it wouldn't get done. So I've no objection again to putting this in principle and making it work. But we haven't got a detailed report. We haven't taken into account all the factors. And the absolute prerequisite is that it gets empty. So I'm going to vote against it. I'm perfectly happy to hear a considered report from Mr. Judge when it comes back to this committee from the officers, having talked to the district council and made the point that if there isn't about the district council emptying it, and it's not a replacement bin, it's not a new bin, it's a replacement bin, and other bins have been lost. And we're having that discussion with them and indicating that we want to see the problem addressed. So I'm going to vote against it, not because I'm against the principle, because like I said, we're not in a position to make that decision at this point here and now.
Thank you. We're talking about a bin. We had bin gate, and I thought we'd moved beyond that. Now what we're doing is we're discussing one bin and asking officers to write a report about one bin. I think the sensible thing to do, councillors, is actually just try it for 6 months, and then we'll have a report in 6 months' time on what's happened in the trial. And if you just get on with it, it'll be done. And the officers can do it when they can. It's not going to cause us any cost. So I ask you to support this motion to go with the trial. Thank you.
I'll just sum up on that, just quickly.
Okay, so the proposal is to make contact with the landlord of the Wootton Manor Top Shops to consider running a trial of a litter bin outside the shops for 6 months using the bin that is currently in storage at Parks Depot, which will be a minimum cost of council.
All those in favour? Those against? Leading on.